listening to The Prop Shop, the #1 podcast for your shop. Brought to you by the United Prop Builders, Coffee Powered Media, with your hosts Adam Hazy, Sean Toomey.
Hey Shop Rats, welcome to The Prop Shop, the podcast that brings you the coolest tips and tricks for your costuming and replica prop needs. We're your hosts, Adam Hazy.
And Sean Toomey.
And today, we're back. I know we've been missing for, I think it was a week. We missed one episode, and I have a great explanation for that.
What's your explanation?
Well, it was midterms week, so I was hit hard with school, so I was busy focusing and studying up on that, and I know it's not the best excuse for some people, but
it's a terrible excuse.
It's what I got, education.
Yeah.
Go school. So, Sean, have you been up to anything lately since our past couple weeks we've been out?
Well, I've been working on figuring out ways to make my Mandalorian armor a little better, trying to get it Mandalorian Mercs approved up to that status. So,
what are you thinking about doing to that to get it up to snuff?
Replacing the cod piece, first of all, because mine is terrible right now. And also the knees. The knees are they were literally thrown together in like 20 minutes. So
yeah, I'd put the knees a bit higher than the cod piece.
Well, the cod piece is pretty bad too, and it's uncomfortable. So
I believe that.
Are they really designed to be comfortable? So I don't know.
No, not usually.
No. But that, and I'm probably going to end up remaking the chest armor because it just seems a little too small for me. So I don't know. All of it seems weird the more I look at it. So I'm probably just going to redo most of it.
Yeah,
so.
Like as you go, upgrade parts. That's what a lot of people do.
Yeah, I was even thinking about doing a shin armor and thigh armor, but I kind of like the design of my boots more.
Yeah,
so
I would say keep your boots and then just get some thigh armor personally.
Yeah. So anything you've been working on?
Yes, I've actually been doing a little bit of research. I've been talking to Jake. You guys know him as William Jakesphere on YouTube. He was on the show a while ago. I was talking to him about some materials for a secret project that you guys will find about in December. Yeah. So you have that to look forward to. Can't give too much away right now.
I'm excited for it.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a great one.
It's going to be fun. But
until then, we have a special guest this week. Yeah, I know, right? Us with special guests, what's up with that?
Yeah.
So, he's actually a very special guest because he's been doing this for over 10 years, and he's fairly recognizable across the community as a whole. So, to introduce, for the first time on The Prop Shop, Sean Bradley. Yay!
Clap. Hi, guys. This is the sound of my voice.
So, how are you, Sean? How have you been?
I'm doing pretty good. I've been kind of busy, working on a lot of projects as always, and making a lot of ODST costumes for people.
I believe that. We'll get to that a bit later.
Sure. But everything's going well.
That's good. And for anybody who might not know of Sean Bradley, he was basically the poster child, for lack of a better term, for shop safety in the beginning years of 405th and the ramp up of the prop and costume making, which was actually probably really good because you probably saved a lot of trips to the hospital.
Yeah. I hope that's true. I hope I helped.
But not only that, like we said earlier, he's been doing this for over the past 10 years and even had his costumes featured on the Sci-Fi Network, Discovery, and Spike TV. And some high-profile fan films. But if you don't know him from that, you will know him from his infamous, most world-famous ODST Halo kits.
Infamous? I don't think infamous is the word for it.
It wasn't, but it sounds cool.
It sounded cooler. Yeah.
I'll
All right.
I've been making the ODST costumes for quite a while, and I think a lot of people know me through that. But, do a little bit of everything, but I think that's probably been the most popular item that I make.
Yeah, so before we delve too much into the ODST kits, how did you get started doing the prop and costume making?
Oh gosh, well, I mean, aside from I think the experience that everybody has with costume making as a yearly holiday tradition at Halloween, and it's coming up on Halloween, so happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
I think I took Halloween a little more seriously than most kids did, and I think I made my first handmade costume when I was about 8 years old.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I made a cardboard Bausch, the Princess Leia character that she was in Return of the Jedi. You know, she was dressed up as this bounty hunter when she entered Jabba's palace
to go to save Han.
Yeah, and I liked the look of that helmet, and so I made one out of cardboard, and there were many, many explanations about how I was dressed up, not as Princess Leia, but as Bausch, the bounty hunter that she was dressed up as. So it was maybe my first cosplay was a crossplay, but I guess that's probably arguable.
Nothing wrong with that.
Sure. Well, I mean, little I know at 8 years old that sometime later, let's say.
Yeah, and at one point in time, that was probably a real bounty hunter too, and then she killed him.
Sure. I'm not so certain about the fiction of it, but I liked the design of it, and I thought it was real cool, and it was something that I could make as an 8-year-old. But some 31 years later, I probably wouldn't have guessed that this is what I'd be doing for a living and what I do as a passion for myself. I really began cosplaying and making costumes and armor in earnest in about 2004, 2005. So it's probably just coming up on 10 years. And I think I got started again at Halloween.
Nice.
I've been playing Halo with some friends, and a good friend of mine had given me Xbox with Halo as a wedding gift. My wife and I were married in 2004.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I'd been playing Halo for a while and was trying to come up with a great Halloween costume. And I was well overboard with my Halloween costumes every year. It's kind of a tradition. And this one particular year, I said, I'm going to make Halo armor.
Oh, nice.
And sort of delved into this world that I had no idea existed up until that point. There were very few Halo costume makers at that time in the early 2000s. There were probably maybe 2 or 3 that everybody would recognize. Sid Garand of Nightmare Armor was making Halo costumes around then. There's Briar Ritchie of Briar's Armor. He was making a vacuum-formed Spartan costume, which was one of the first that was being produced. And there was another guy named Chris Bryan who had made a fabricated Halo costume, which I, was just fascinated that he could just make it in his garage out of flat materials. Like he was fabricating most of his stuff out of flat plastic. And so that was where I got my start. I did a little research and I gave it a go on my own and made my first Halloween costume in 2005, and was, like I said, I got obsessed with it and I just kept doing it. And,
so what was the costume? Was it a Master Chief or Spartan?
It was a very rudimentary Master Chief. And like I said, it was fabricated all out of flat sheet plastic. I didn't know where to get started really, and I'm a sculptor. My background is as a sculptor, but this seemed to be the kind of thing that I wanted to try a completely different skill set and learn how to do it a totally different way.
That's awesome.
So I set out to fabricate it out of flat plastic, and believe it or not, I still have those patterns that I used to make my first Master Chief costume.
Oh,
it was like Pepakura before Pepakura had happened. But,
the hipster Pepakura. Yeah, I was doing it before. It was cool.
Yeah, I put my glasses up.
Well, hey, maybe you need to bust those templates out and make another suit. The 10 years anniversary's coming out for that thing.
Oh, that would be a riot. I think what was really amazing was at that time, I didn't know that there were so many people out there who were as obsessed and interested in making costumes as I was. I just started doing all this research online and trying to find pictures of homemade Halo costumes. And like I said, there were very few number of people who were actually making them. And in the process of doing that research, I thought it'd be really cool to try to meet up with other people who do this and maybe share ideas and, techniques and whatnot. And I have some background in sculpture. I can teach people how to make molds.
That's awesome. So you kind of already knew that aspect of it already.
I knew that there would be a place where we'd all meet up. And I actually thought, well, I wonder if I could start a website that would be a place for people to meet like that. And I started Googling or doing search on different domain names because I was trying to pick one out because I wanted to register it to have a website where people learned how to make Halo costumes.
Right.
And one of the addresses that I came up with, one of the potential addresses was Mjolnir Armor. And I typed that in, and I saw that someone already owned it. And it turned out to be Adam Grumbo. Yeah. And so I typed in the address, MjolnirArmor.com, and went to it, and I was like, oh my God, somebody already built this website. Like, there's already a place where people are meeting and sharing techniques and teaching each other how to make these costumes. So I may have gotten in, maybe the website was maybe 3 or 4 months old at that time.
Oh, wow, that's pretty early.
And I just sort of lucked out and started sharing the work that I did and trying to help other people as much as I could. And before too long, they asked me if I wanted to be a moderator. And I really didn't have any experience moderating websites, but I'm a fairly decent mediator when it comes to, I'm the youngest of 3 children, so I was always, trying to resolve arguments between siblings.
Yeah.
So I've always been a fair mediator and tried to, just try to come to this sort of thing objectively and add whatever technical information I could to what they were doing. And it was pretty interesting because before too long, the entire community was sort of born out of that website in the very early years of Halo costume making.
Yeah, and then it's just branched out from there because it's like, I even remember when I joined somewhere between 2008 and 2010, it's like some of the big names were like Sean Bradley, Ithaca, Blackula, Adam Grumbo, and I'm like, those guys are really cool. They're doing all this really sweet builds, and I can't.
I mean, you probably looked at us the way that we looked at the first generation.
Yeah.
Sid and Chris and Briar that were doing it first. So I consider myself sort of like one of those, probably in the second generation there, and was doing my best to teach everybody who wanted to learn after me.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of tradition continues over there. It's just so on and so on. We try to keep anybody who's interested, try to help them out the best way we can.
Yeah, and it's like some people come and go from time to time, but it's like you're still here also, and you were one of the beginning people, more or less, which is amazing.
Well, I think everything's changed, and there's definitely a maturation process that happens with anyone's career when you're first learning as a hobbyist and an enthusiast, and you start to get into it as a business. There's definitely changes that happen. I'm not as involved with the 405th as I once was, but it's not because I don't want to. It's because I'm usually too busy. And
right, I know how that goes.
Just have very, very little time to devote it. And in those early years when I was there, when I was really involved at the website, it was because I had a little more free time to do that sort of thing. But now I'm too busy making costumes.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to kind of segue into. Is like to this day, I am always impressed when it's like, hey guys, I'm looking for an ODST suit, and immediately the first 7 comments are like, Sean Bradley, contact him.
Well, believe it or not, it was never really my intention to get into mass producing anything like that. It was really taboo back in the day.
Right.
Of course, time has proven everybody wrong about that. I think that you can produce a lot of costumes and a lot of kits of something like this, and I think you can see all of the other studios that have cropped up in the last several years. That have online stores, that have really high-profile sales that are happening all the time, and a lot of them are getting contracted by video game design companies.
And that's great for what we do, because for a lot of people, that is like the end goal for them.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning of the website, we were really very concerned about, what was the legality of making costumes, and could we sell them to each other? Could we sell a few here and there? Could we trade back and forth? And
yeah.
It was unproven territory. No one really knew how Bungie or Microsoft would respond, and it was, I think it was that first core group. We really sort of tested out the waters to see what the reaction would be to a whole bunch of Halo costumers and a whole bunch of people making things and trading and sharing them amongst their own community. And the response that we got back from them was essentially that they thought it was fantastic. We were promoting their franchise.
Yeah.
And we were showing how devoted people were to their games. I think, the financial end of it was just that I don't think they really wanted anybody to, mass market something or to try to imply that it was a licensed product. A lot of times now, I think people sort of dance along the fine line when they call something a replica, or if they are calling it something that's inspired by the video game series or something like that. It's all very grammatical. It's how you phrase it. But I think that as long as you're doing it out of your love for the game, out of your devotion to the original designs, and just trying to share your passion with everybody else, I think it's a good place to come from. I try to shy away from people who are doing it strictly for financial gain.
Right, I couldn't agree more with that. But it's like there are those people out there who that's their goal, where it's like most of us are like, I just want to go have fun and meet with my friends. Yeah.
Well, there are far easier ways to make money than making costumes.
A whole lot of ways that are a whole lot less stressful.
Yeah, and with that in mind, I've always kept my prices as low as possible. I charge just the absolute minimum what I can afford to do this for when I make something for someone. And it's not just because I didn't want to be seen to be profiting from the game, but I think it's more because I do this because I love it. I don't do it for financial gain.
Yeah.
It's in my heart. Like I said, there's probably a lot easier ways you can make money than making costumes. I think making costumes is a great way to spend money, not to make it. But
and we should probably start talking about it, since how we mentioned it a lot, but the ODST kits, like, how did that start to become a thing? Like, where'd you get the idea for that?
Well, it was actually a few months before the game came out. I was just finishing a sort of a year-long project designing these energy sword props that I've been making, working with an engineer, Dustin Westaby, for about a year. We were sort of, tinkering back and forth. He would send me a revision of a design. I would, toy with it, send it back to him. We were trying to find ways to integrate his custom circuitry inside the handle of the energy sword and have the power source inside the handle, so there wouldn't be any wires sticking out or anything like that. And we had really just finished the energy swords, had the first prototypes done, and I thought, I need to have a new costume to wear with this, because I had an old, Master Chief, Halo 2 era Master Chief costume.
Right.
It was still part of those costumes that I was making out of flat plastic.
Yeah.
Kind of like the, like I said, it was before Pepakura had started, before the popularity of Pepakura. So I had, my own templates, and at some point was going to hand those out to folks. But Pepakura came along and did what I was trying to do much, much better.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that I needed a new costume, and ODST was just about to release. The game had been, we'd seen a lot of trailers for the game and a few reference images here and there. And I think everybody had always been kind of fascinated by the ODSTs in the Halo campaigns, and wanted to know more about those characters. And so yeah, there was a lot of hype and excitement for ODST right at the time, and I thought that's the perfect costume. It's relatively simple. I can probably break it down into enough pieces that I could make molds or make forms. I had just learned vacuum forming in order to make those energy sword blades. I wonder if I could vacuum form some armor. I remembered that Briar Ritchie had been vacuum forming Spartan costumes way back in the day, and thought, I wonder if I could vacuum form something. Yeah, it would probably speed up the process because I could make, for pieces that were symmetrical, I could just make one and then pull a copy.
Yeah.
Each one, and that would sort of speed up the development of this. So it was just a month or so before Dragon Con, actually. And I was planning to go to Dragon Con and sort of show off the energy swords, and I just decided, let's put together an ODST costume really quickly. And I basically just barely got it done. I think maybe the back plate for the costume wasn't finished. That first year I went, and if you see any pictures of me from the back, you can see the armor stops at my shoulders, and the back is open. And I think I had a piece of a laser tag vest or something holding all the parts together that I was wearing on the back. I didn't actually finish all the pieces for it until after the convention, but sometimes having a deadline like that sort of pushes you to do more than you would have accomplished on your own.
Yeah.
But we got that first ODST costume done, and I showed up. It was a few weeks before the game came out, perhaps? I remember that the We Are ODST live-action trailer had just aired that weekend, the weekend of Dragon Con.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, when I had the costume finished. So everybody was kind of crazy about it. Like, oh my God, you have that ODST costume, and that looks like the new ODSTs, not the old ones.
Yeah.
I said, oh, well, yeah, I just sort of put it together. But hey, check out this energy sword. I spent a year on this. And, actually, there's a lot of people who wanted to know more about it, and I got in contact with them and let them know that I'd probably, if they wanted to have a kit made. I remember having those first conversations at that Dragon Con with people saying, how much would it cost you to make copies of that? And could you sell them to me? And I thought, well, that wasn't really my goal, but sure, if it helps out, I'd be glad to. If it gets more people into this hobby, of course.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was so involved with the 405th and really just trying to promote costume making and specifically, Halo fandom among new people, that it just seemed to take off right underneath my feet. I got so much interest from that first convention I went to that I had to scramble to sort of finish off the rest of the pieces and to get some copies of it made as quickly as I could.
That's awesome, though.
But it caught fire underneath me, and I'll continue to make them as long as people want them, and as long as I'm helping, as long as I can help reduce the entry cost into this hobby for anybody out there. I'd be glad to make a ODST costume for as cheaply as I can, just to get new people into the hobby. You sort of think about, there's a lot of people, I think, that, costume doesn't get good until you've been doing it a long, long time, but you have to start somewhere. And
right.
I think there are so many people who are really intimidated by getting started that just don't have a place to start. And like I said, Pepakura came along and really changed that quite a bit. And, at that time we were sort of thinking a lot about how do we make all these costumes look uniform. I remember having long conversations with Adam about, we have so many people who are putting a lot of time into their costumes, but how do you get the two costumes when they're standing side by side at a convention to look,
like they belong together?
Like they belong together. And,
yeah.
It's kind of gets into that area of standards, among a costume club. Like you look at the 501st, and they have their standards, and the Mando Mercs, and just about every club has their own set of standards. I think the 405th is always very open to, everyone's best, make your costume to the best of your ability.
Yeah, because that's always a topic that comes up from time to time where it's like,
Yeah.
I'll see forum posts like maybe once every couple of years where it's like, hey, are we gonna get costuming standards now to make everybody more unique? And then it gets into this whole debate 'cause it's like nobody really wants standards per se.
Well, that was definitely the conversation that was happening. Was how do you balance that idea of allowing people to make costumes the way that they want to make, and to not exclude them for not being as experienced as other people?
Yeah.
I've always appreciated seeing everybody's interpretation of, like I said, making costumes to the best of their ability. And I think that's part of the process in terms of learning. You have to start somewhere, and you have to at least show what you can do before you ask other people for advice and how to do this and how to do that. I like seeing variety in the costumes.
Yeah.
I think if we put a real strict set of standards in, I'm not sure that would exclude a lot of people, to be honest. And then you'd have different schools breaking apart. Like you'd have the people who wanted to make all the costumes out of foam, and you'd have the people who wanted to make all the costumes out of epicure, and you'd have all the people who wanted to make costumes that were 3D printed. Like there's so many different ways to skin that cat. And
especially nowadays with all the different mediums we're able to use, and we're still learning more to use.
Absolutely. And I think each of them are valid and have their own, pros and cons. And I think to say one way is better than the other is, it's not exactly fair.
Right, because it's like, for my costumes, I usually make them out of foam because it's more affordable for me as a college student to do it.
Absolutely. And that price point, I think, is really, like I said before, it's what people tend to be a little intimidated by in the beginning. And so if you can offer them, an entry-level costume, a way to get into the hobby that they can at least follow along and learn from doing that first costume, and they could take it as far as they want to beyond that. It's like when people were first laminating Pepicura, these paper models, and everything had hard edges and corners. You could wear it, and it was recognizably Halo, but, if you spent more time, you could sand down those edges and make those curves real smooth.
Yeah.
And, it's all a matter of how much time you want to invest into it. And it's really, my interest has always come from the art and the craft of making stuff. And sort of getting involved with the club aspects of the 405th, and certainly the forum moderation and everything like that. It sort of came along, after I'd sort of already gotten obsessed with making the costumes. But
yeah.
I've met so many people that through this hobby, and sort of, I think everybody looks at it as the costume community these days, and I just sort of look at them as all my friends. These are all people who love this thing as much as I do, and I'm just glad to have found them, whether it's been through a forum or meeting them at conventions, whatever. And these people that share the same interests, I'm just glad to have finally find people that that will listen to me talk about it for as long as I do.
Yeah, because that's one of the funny things where it's like our co-host, other Sean, it's like me and him have been friends for 4 or 5 years now, and it's like 5 or 6 years ago you would never have thought that could have happened.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a weird thing, when you sort of realize that you have more to talk about with some of these people who you've never met in person
than you do the people in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just like I said, when I first got started, I was just so obsessed that I tended to go on and on about it, and I was trying to recruit all my friends into it, and all of them were kind of like, "That's your thing. I'm into my thing." And
yeah,
that's okay. I said, "Okay, well, there's got to be somebody else who's into this stuff. I have to find them."
It actually sounds very familiar about when I got started. It's just basically the same thing. I was trying to get friends into it, and I couldn't do it, and I found 405th, and like, my people.
That's right. That's right. I just let me sing you the song of my people. It sounds like
exactly.
Sounds like a palm sander. But I I've been super excited about how things went with the 405th, and like I said, not as involved as I am now, or not as involved now as I was then. But I drop in every once in a while and try to keep an eye on things. It just seems like more people these days sort of keep in contact about everything that they're working on through more generalized social media platforms like Facebook. And you sort of see the specified forums, the forums that are just for Halo or just for movie props or just for one particular franchise or another, who all sort of meet on equal ground with Facebook.
Because that's one thing that it's like United Prop Builders has been trying to do for its life cycle is it's like you have all these people kind of segmented. And this was like a couple years ago, it was even worse. But now it's like more people are starting to collaborate and work together and be like, oh, I've done this for this other suit. It'll work for the issue you're having here.
It just astonishes me that this community has grown so large so quickly.
Yeah.
To go from just a few people making Halo costumes or making this sort of, hard armor. I remember back in the day, it was like everybody was thinking, well, do you think we could make it like they make those stormtrooper costumes? Could they vacuum form it? And everybody sort of thought, well, the rounded edges. I don't know. We get better results out of casting things out of molds, silicone molds. But you could see that there was a blueprint for this kind of community with the 501st, and gosh, they've been doing this sort of thing for a long time, much longer than all of the rest of us Johnny come lately.
But yeah, it's just like I was maybe Gen 3, late Gen 3, and I just kind of lurked on the site, not really posting because I haven't been making anything. I was just learning. Right, and it's just amazing to be able to sit here and just see how the community has grown since then and what kind of techniques have come and gone along with that.
It blows me away. I think about where things started and where they are now, where there are so many people 3D printing props and costumes that you just can't keep track of how many people are producing how many different things. And it's just, I'm just shocked and sort of thrilled about where this whole hobby is going. It just seems to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And here I am still making energy swords and ODST costumes.
I was just about to mention that it's actually kind of funny that you're still one of the only people to have energy swords available.
Yeah, well, there are a number of other people who've gotten into doing that, and I encourage everybody as much as I can. To a point, I occasionally will get the person who starts a lot of questioning with me about how I did this or how I did that. And they want to know very, very specific things about how exactly I've manufactured something. And I always feel a little trepidatious when I
answer because that's kind of like,
Well, it is my business, and it is how I support myself. And
you got to have a little trade secret.
It's how I keep the studio doors open. I have to have something that I can do that nobody else can do the same way that I do. And I think there's a little bit of that one way or the other. If someone was making the exact same thing as me, I would have my own bent on it. But I just had somebody recently who asked me some very specific questions about vacuum forming, and in most cases I sort of want to know who the person is. This was just a sort of a random person who contacted me on Facebook, and I said I usually try to avoid giving away too much of my ancient Chinese secrets. But because you asked the question very politely, I'll answer the questions. But just so you know, I try not to give away too much of this stuff.
Yeah, we don't blame you for it.
It's just that it's to complete strangers. But I answered his questions very quickly, and he thanked me and everything. And the very next day, I saw photos that he had posted of vacuum formed energy sword blades that he had manufactured using my advice. And I thought, wow, way to take the free advice I gave you and turn around and try to take my business with it. But I don't know. I try not to be too protective. I want to help people as much as I can, but
there's a difference if it's for personal use or for something more than that.
There's some techniques that I have in the process of how I make certain things that I think I can share with everybody, and everybody has their own interpretation. But there are other aspects of, of how I make things that I want to keep to myself, because, that's, like I said, that's my secret sauce. That's how I learned to do it, through lots and lots of trial and error. And but the information I do give out to people, it seems like a lot of people have really benefited from it. And that's encouraging to me. I love seeing everything that everybody's working on, but in some ways I do have to be a little protective now and then. It's a fine line to be struck between being, overprotective and trying to be supportive at the same time. But I think I like the hobby, and I like to share my enthusiasm for it. And any way I can help people, I generally try to just be the helpful guy.
Yeah, but this other question is just kind of something that's come up recently, and is kind of off skew of the other ones. But so you do make Halo weapons, but what are your opinions on what's going on with the New York Comic-Con thing?
Oh yeah, well, it's funny because I think that culture of terrorism and people being afraid of folks dressed in costumes or dressed in something that looks military or armor-like.
The fear factor.
There is a definite fear factor, and it's very reflective of our society. I remember the first couple of times I went to DragonCon, and I was shocked because there were all these people walking around with very, very realistic-looking firearms. I remember the first time seeing someone walk into a convenience store in Atlanta at DragonCon, and they were, they had firearms with them, and that gets into gun rights laws and open carry, and that was just, I think what I saw back then just kind of surprised me, and I thought, I wonder at some point if people are going to be be nervous around someone who's dressed in costume. And you start to see all these stories of like police being called on people who are just like walking to the convention in their Master Chief suits.
Right.
Or the police being called on Bungie when they were carrying props from the car to their studio.
Oh, wow.
You guys remember that story?
No.
It was some of the props that they had made for a live action commercial. Or maybe it was for the Peter Jackson Weta project, but one of the Bungie employees was carrying them from his car after doing some kind of event to the front of the studio, and someone called the police on Bungie Studios.
Oh wow!
It was a riot. But I remember when I was trying to decide what kind of weapon I wanted to carry with my costume, whether I wanted a super realistic gun or I wanted something different. I thought, I need to have something that I can carry that people don't actually feel threatened by.
Right.
That's why I chose the energy sword. And I've had a few people recently who said, like one of the guys who wants to get a costume, I've been talking to him, and he says, well, things are really strict at my campus. And I've had a few friends that have, had the police called on them when they're just cosplaying. And how do you recommend I deal with that situation? I say, well, you can go to security at your campus first and tell them that this is your concern, and ask for their advice about how to avoid the situation. And you don't want security to be called on you if you're walking to a game event or something on campus, or walking around Halloween too.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is context, and I said, I wouldn't be out walking around late at night in your Halo costume when it's not a holiday or not a convention or not Halloween. That people expect to see others in costume at certain times, and I think if you're sort of out skulking around in your Halo armor without a good context, without people really knowing what it's about, that's when people can feel threatened.
Yeah, because the way I kind of see the whole case right now is we're still kind of in that growing pain phase when it comes to the weapons, but it's been getting better, in my opinion, because it's like conventions are becoming more and more out there that people know about them. So it's more advertised more, so you kind of know when it's going to be there.
Yeah, I'm surprised at how many people know what the word cosplay means now.
Yeah.
And just a few years ago, I think the second you said that word, you'd be launching into explaining what the word means to someone.
Yeah.
But it's really become pretty mainstream. And I have lots of friends who aren't even into costuming who every year they're like, oh, I really want to go to San Diego Comic-Con this year. And I said, well, are you into comic books? Yeah, sort of. Are you into costumes? Well, not so much. And you're like, you really, really want to go to Comic-Con? Yeah, it just seems like it's really cool. It's like a good time. I thought, well, I had no idea how mainstream this had become, that people who aren't even involved in like one of these sort of niche fanboy things, that they go to Comic-Con too, just as entertainment.
Yeah. And it's kind of also one of those things where it's like even game developers are kind of starting to help us out with that by making their weapons more and more ridiculous and less realistic.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit that I did take the easy way out with making energy swords.
Yeah.
Very realistic guns. But I do have some good props. I tend to refer people want, a silenced SMG or an ODST automag or something like that to go with the costume. I'll refer them to somebody else and sort of say, I have a number of weapon maker friends that do a really, really good job, and I really have no need to duplicate their efforts. So I do a lot of referrals that way. But carrying the Covenant weapons, it definitely makes security a little less of an issue.
Because it's just one of those things where it's like, as it gets out there more, there will start being better, I don't want to say security, but checks just to make sure everything's okay. And it's gonna be one of those issues where it's like, because I used to be into airsoft,
right? So
it's kind of like, okay, there's a set of checks and balances here where you just don't be stupid about it.
It's a very politicized issue right now, gun rights, and certainly. This is just a little interesting window into that larger topic through our own hobby. But I know people got really upset about the policy and what was going on at New York Comic Con. But if you look at the rules that they put forth, they kind of said no metal weapons, no hard weapons, nothing that looks dangerous and sharp or potentially realistic that might be misconstrued as an actual weapon.
Right, and it's like, in my opinion, the metal thing is kind of should be, I don't want to say common knowledge, but it's like, don't think of bringing something metal or sharp where there's people of all ages.
And I guess there are a lot of people who sort of say, well, yeah, I mean, a lot of that stuff is just common sense. But I think they were just shocked that somebody finally decided to enforce their rules. I think a lot of those same rules are in place at every single convention.
They're just not enforced as well.
New York, I think, has a culture now where they're a little bit more strict on gun safety, and so that's where their perspective is. At different parts of the country, I'm sure the attitudes are much different. But I don't know. It's a slippery slope. But I do think that taking people's props away when they're entering into a convention like that, it's a bit like we're somehow paying for everyone's fears. Like everybody feels insecure when they get together in a big group like that. And the question that I asked when I first saw it was, when has a cosplayer ever been arrested for hurting people with their props?
Right.
Like, has that ever happened? Ever?
Not that I know of.
Has there ever been a person who came into a convention and ran around and started smashing people with their broom hammer? I think most people who spend that amount of time making something look super realistic, or
they're not going to let it break.
Walking around like holding it like it's made of glass. They don't want to damage it. So I don't know. I think it's a fad. It'll probably come and go. I hope that this is just a temporary reaction to I said, kind of a politicized issue.
Yeah, it's probably it's probably just some growing pain at the moment. It'll fade out eventually.
And with any luck.
Or people will just, or more education about everything will be out there, and it just kind of settles into place.
Yeah, well, like I said, just a few years ago, most people didn't know that this was a thing. And it seems like more and more people are sort of learning the vernacular and knowing what cosplay is, and costuming, and costume making.
Yeah, and even if they don't specifically know everything about it, they know of it, at least.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast earlier today. It was a comedian, Dana Gould, who's a writer for The Simpsons. He did a podcast, and he was talking about, that there are actually people who have garrisons of stormtroopers, and they actually reenact things like stormtroopers. I don't remember what it's called, the 91st or something, and I'm screaming. And he's like, yeah, it's like, I can't believe they're actually reenacting. Like, at what point does it become unhealthy to reenact the things that you see? And I said, well, dude, you have no idea. It's the bottomless hole. There are so many different things I think that people really, really get into.
Yeah, it's like if you're going to make that comparison, it's like saying, oh, the World War II reenactments or the Civil War reenactments.
Oh yeah, it's so different, whether you're reenacting the Civil War or whether you're a furry.
Yeah.
It's because you're expressing something that you're really, really interested in. It reminds me of Halloween costumes. When I was a little kid, they used to sell these boxed Halloween costumes. That was a little thin vacuum-formed mask of whatever licensed character you were purchasing a costume of. And then it would be like a plastic bib, or a very flimsy thing that you put on. And it didn't perfectly recreate the character. It had a picture of that character on that bib or on that onesie or whatever came with the vacuum form mask. You weren't going as that character. You were dressing up as a fan of that character.
Yeah, because I know exactly what you're talking about. Because the costume I remember most that I had like that was Major Chip Hazard from Small Soldiers when that came out. So it was like this super thin mask that broke within a couple hours, and I was sad.
Yeah.
And this thin cloth Huggy almost, or Snuggie, whatever they're called.
You sort of look at that, and that's most kids' entry point into costuming and Halloween, and it's what most people who don't pursue it later in life, that's their frame of reference.
Yeah.
Is that Halloween thing. I remember the first time I wore my Master Chief costume to a Halloween event. It was that first year, and walking on the way to my friend's party, someone stopped me to take pictures. Oh my God, that's really cool. That's really cool. Where'd you get it? And I said, I made it. You made that? I was like, yeah.
That's always the best thing.
And the guy says to me, he's like, man, how did you spend that much time working on something like that? That just seems so pointless. I was like, oh, dude.
Yeah.
No, it's not pointless.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I have gotten so much out of it, and I think it's just taken a little bit of time. In the last couple of years, this community has grown so big that it's starting to spill into mainstream, and I'd say the more the merrier. That's always been something I've been real focused on, is just trying to help beginners and help new people, and to get as many people into this hobby as we possibly can, because I just want to see it succeed and to continue to grow larger and larger.
Yeah, because the more we can make the community grow, the more we can do with them, for them, and new ways we can get things done.
Yeah.
So it's
there wouldn't be as many people who were afraid about that prop weapon you were carrying around if they knew who your character was that you were playing.
Right.
It's all about levels of understanding and just people's awareness of what the hobby is. Some people think it's odd. I've known a number of people who, when they find out that I'm a costume maker or a cosplayer and that I go to these conventions, they sort of look at me differently, and they go so do you think you're that person? Do you think you're that costume person from that video game? But no, I'm not it's not quite like a reenactor. Don't worry, I have a very healthy understanding of reality.
Yeah.
But I like to wear the costumes too, and I like to encourage, the fandom of these things that I love, and find other people that enjoy it too. But in a lot of ways, it's still like wearing that costume that identifies you as a fan of that thing. It's just that the costume has gotten more elaborate than the vacuum form mask and the plastic bib.
Yeah. Oh, but it looks like from the time that we're coming up to the end of the show.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know already, right?
We haven't even talked about yet. I have to tell you guys about Halo Fest and about all the cool stuff that we've done over the years. But get me talking about old history of 405th and of Halo costuming. I'll just go on and on forever.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to have you on soon again.
Yeah, well, anytime, guys. I'd love to sit down and chat about what's going on, or anything that you're interested in. We could go on and on about technical stuff too. I haven't really even said that much about how I make all this stuff.
Oh, jeez, yeah. We'll definitely have to get to that. Oh man, that went way quicker than I thought. Wow.
Well, I put together a little portfolio of stuff that I've done in like the last 10 years or so. I sent a link to you, Adam, the other day. But anybody who wants to see any of the projects that I've worked on, I put together this, a very hastily thrown together portfolio. But I can give out the web address if your listeners would be interested.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's tinyurl.com. That's tinyurl.com/Sean Bradley Portfolio, and that's all one word. And it's just a little selection of some of the costumes and artwork and other stuff that I've made in the last 10 years or so. And if there's anything that anybody has any questions about, I always say I'm here to help. I take technical questions and try to give advice to just about anybody I know, and a lot of people I don't know. So if there's ever anything I can help out with, that's what I'm here for.
So where's the best place people could get in contact you with?
Well, I am on Twitter, but I don't use it very often. My name on Twitter is @CostumeDork. And like I said, I'm not on Twitter all that often. But the best place to reach me on a daily basis is Facebook. And I'm at facebook.com/Sean.Bradley.75. And send me a message, send me a friend invite, or let me know if there's anything I can do to help out. Like I said, I try to help everyone who has taken the time to write to me. So if there's anything I can do to help anybody, just let me know.
Sounds awesome. And is there anything you'd like to plug before we wrap things up here?
Oh, gosh. What am I doing right now? Well, I just before leaving the studio today to come home and get ready for this, I just finished putting together a new energy sword for a client, and it's something we haven't seen before. I'm excited to show it off. I was actually trying to edit a song to go along with the video, because I don't have any audio to the video other than you hear me breathing into the microphone on my iPhone.
Right.
So I was trying to put a song to it, but the energy sword is one that we just came up with. I'm working with a new engineer, Joshua Kane, is working with some microprocessors that are commercially available through a website called Adafruit. And he can tell you much more about this, but Josh Kane does awesome stuff with LEDs. And for this kit that he made for this particular client, it's an energy sword that changes colors.
Oh, that sounds awesome. Wow.
So if you think about, I think he put up a video a while back that was an energy sword that had like rainbow colors, like moving down the blade. This is one where you hit the button and it scrolls through about 5 or 6 different color combinations, and each one has a little bit of a sparkling light that goes from the end to the tip, kind of like that glimmer of electricity that moves down the energy swords in the game.
Oh, that's amazing.
So you start it off and it's blue and white, and then you hit the button and it's red and yellow. You hit the button again and it's green and blue. And you hit the button again and it's the little things like that make me real excited because
I can't wait to see that. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, but I'll probably post up that video to my Facebook later today, or tonight, I should say. And, maybe I'll throw up a link on Twitter if people want to check it out on Twitter also. But we hope to make a few more of those.
Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be spectacular. But yeah, we'd like to thank you once again for coming on our show today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys. This is a lot of fun. Like I said, I could yammer on and on forever about this stuff.
Yeah.
To me, it's just cool talking with other people who are as interested in this stuff as I am. And,
yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back again.
Oh yeah.
Cool. Well, just let me know. And anytime you want to get together and chat about any of that stuff, I'm here to help.
Awesome. And Sean, where can people get in contact with you?
People can find me on Twitter at SeanEngine951 and on YouTube at Coffee Powered Media.
Awesome.
And you?
People can get in contact with me at Facebook. Just search my name, Adam Hazy, or in the group at facebook.com/UnitedPropBuilders, YouTube at youtube.com/UnitedPropBuilders, or Twitter at PropBuilds. And don't forget to email me at UnitedPropBuilders@gmail.com. So until next time, we'll see you guys later. Bye.
Bye.